All right, learning objective 3 is to look at some profitability analysis, kind of analysis tools. And the first is return on assets. And means when you see something like on means divided by. So return divided by assets. Return typically means net income. So just by the phrase return on assets, I kind of know the formula is net income divided by assets, right? Return on assets. Anyway, so the way you interpret it is for every dollar of the denominator, how much do we have of the numerator? I just gave you a generic view of how to interpret a ratio. So let's try that. For every, in this case, for every dollar of assets, how much profit do we make, right? So for every dollar of denominator, assets, how much do we make the numerator, profits? So in this particular case, net income divided by average assets. Then we can do what we call decomposition. Decomposition is we take net income, we leave that alone, we see it here, so we see net income here, and we see net income here, right? So that didn't move. But on the other side, we see we have average assets here and average assets here. What we do, which is the bit of insight, is that we then divide the first one by sales, and we have as numerator sales. Now, you guys are all algebra whizzes, right? So you say, well, Professor Louis, why do you have net income divided by sales and sales times average assets when they just cancel, it'd be net income over assets? Like, why make something hard? Why can't we just have two numbers and get one ratio? The reason is I could have a return on assets of, say, 20%, but you have no idea how we got there. Did we get there because we sold a lot of things and therefore made a lot of profit? Or did we get there because we're very profitable, that for everything we sell, we make a lot of money? Again, using the Apple example, for every Apple iPhone sold, they make a lot of money per phone. But for every loaf of bread sold by a grocery store, the grocery store doesn't make much money. So they have to sell a lot of bread, right? So a ROA doesn't tell you that. By decomposing, we actually look at this important relationship of profitability versus productivity. And so we can do the ROA, but then if we want to go one level deeper, we decompose and we say, okay, how did they get the ROA? How did they make 20%? They can do it in terms of profitability, where for every dollar of sales, they have high profits, or they could do it because they sell a lot. They have a lot of productivity. For every dollar of assets, they have a lot of sales. All right, so that's a couple of examples. First, of a ratio called ROA, and this idea of a decomposition into components, basically to tear apart it algebraically to see different things from slightly different angles. So that might be a little too esoteric. So let's do some numeric examples. So let's say, like I was alluding to, that a company has a 12% ROA, company A. Now that might sound good, but oops, company B also has 12%. Now if you stop there, you would say they must be the same. A must be the same as B because they both have 12%. But if we go that one level deeper, again, not very hard, we're adding one factor, sales. If we do the ROA, what we see is that in company A, we have average assets of 200 right here. We have net income of 24. For company B, we have 120 in net income, 1,000 in assets. So now we're establishing that baseline, all right? So far, we didn't see much. The next step is where things get more interesting. So we get to adding this level of sales. And so this is the same, but we have sales now. This is the new information, is that company A got there by 150 in sales. Company B got there by $10,000 sales. So what did that extra factor tell us? It showed us this, that if you take net income divided by sales for company A, they have net income of 24 divided by 150, and they get 16%. All right, so for company A, for every dollar of sales, they make 16% or 16 cents. We got that by saying on $150 of sales, We divide that into 24, net income is 16%. Now let's look at B. So B made more net income, 120, but they sold $10,000. So their margin is 1.2%. So for every dollar of sales for B, they make a penny. So A, for every dollar of sales, they make 16 cents. For B, for every dollar of sales, they make a penny. Well, that's very different, right? So we're just starting to see it. Now the next part is here, when we look at the productivity. For every dollar of assets, how much do we sell? In the case of A, for every dollar of assets, they sell 0.75, not even one. Whereas for company B, for every dollar of assets they have, they sell 10. Profit margin times the asset turnover, we get to the same number, 12%. But one gets there by being very profitable, A. The other gets there by selling a lot for a small amount of assets. So this shows the value of ratio analysis, first of all. So ROA is a good measure. But it shows, furthermore, the value of one extra step, the decomposition. What does it tell you? It tells us, how did you get there? A and B both got to 12%, but how did they get there? A got there by being very profitable for each sale. B got there by selling a lot relative to their asset base. Right? So that is the power of decomposition. So when we look at measures across industries and across companies, we could array them on a graph. This particular case, we're looking at profitability. This is the thing we just talked about. Profit margin, net income divided by sales, and productivity as measured by asset turnover. And this curve represents a steady state amount of ROA. And when we do something like this, we see there are some that are kind of to this direction, which is good, which means that for a certain level of assets, they're actually achieving higher profitability. So just think of, let's just pick a spot like here. If we're here at productivity of 2.3 times, would you rather make only 5% or would you rather make more like 8%? Right? So that tells you right away, we'd rather be above to the northeast, if you will, of this curve than this side, which is not good. So an example here is like here at 0.55. These companies roughly have 0.55 productivity, but one company makes a lot of money. I believe that's Coca-Cola. And then one company doesn't make a lot of money, right? So you'd rather be higher. So the further to the southwest you go, the worse off you are. So this again is an example of an analysis, in this case ROA, and where we array different companies and we can make judgments about the company and who's more or less profitable. There are three major credit rating agencies, Moody's, Fitch's, and Standard & Poor's. But for now, we'll just look at one as an example, and it's Moody's, right? So Moody's, they use ratios. These are different ratios of companies, and these are ratings. So A's are better than B's, they're better than C's. So these ratios, this firm would run them all for all the companies, and they've observed that companies that have a very small amount of debt will be stronger than companies with a lot of debt. So this is an example of how companies use ratios to do reporting or analysis for their companies. And we'll look at rating agencies later on when we get to bond financing. It's an essential part of the capital markets. But for now, I just want to introduce the idea of a credit rating agency and how much of their business is done doing financial ratio analysis of companies.